let's have a talk about the theology of ketchup. In particular, a theology of the ketchup bottle. Maybe you've had this experience too. I grew up with the standard glass bottle ketchup, frequently at Heinz or the grocery store brand, and the way the glass bottle was designed was just like this: cap on the top, bottle like this. If we were taking a picnic, we'd take the plastic squirty bottle, but basically it looked like this, and you stored it like this. And I can remember all the trouble we would have countless times on hamburger and hot dog night, or when we were having french fries or whatever, where you would wait and wait and wait and wait for the ketchup to slowly pour out of the bottle. They even made a whole big deal about it sometimes in commercials about how slow the ketchup was. Sometimes we'd jam the knife in there and try and coax the ketchup out. And then some brilliant food container scientist somewhere said, wait a second, what if we turn the bottle upside down? And what if we make it so that it could stand like this? Because the whole point of a ketchup bottle is that you can make it easier for people to squirt ketchup on their hamburger, hot dogs, whatever. What if we designed it like this? And now this is what my kids are used to when we buy ketchup at the grocery store. They've never lived in a world where the ketchup bottle is like this and you have to wait forever for the ketchup to go out. They're used to one that I would call upside down. But at some point, some smart food product scientist figured, wait, the point of a ketchup bottle isn't just to store ketchup in a bottle forever and ever and ever, for it to sit there in your refrigerator hoarding and holding on to and not letting it go. The whole point of a ketchup bottle is for it to be able to spread freely so that you get some on your sandwich, you get some on your hot dog, you get some on your hamburger, for it to be distributed, for it to go out all around to anybody. And when you have a picnic, everybody who wants ketchup should be able to get it, because at the family picnic, everybody gets to eat, right? When the family gathers for a meal, your family, my family, when we gather as church family, we don't give out food based on who's brought the most income to the family. We don't award ketchup servings based on who has the highest amount of income or who's done the most chores. There's just this sort of way of doing things that everybody gets to eat. That's how it works in a household. That's the kind of ordering of things you have in a family. And so, in a lot of ways, this design that turned everything upside down for me actually is right side up. It's how things were supposed to be, maybe, or what makes sense all along. Now, I realize that's a lot of time to wax philosophical about a ketchup bottle, but stay with me for a second. Jesus has this way of telling stories about what things look like where God reigns. What does it look like where God gets God's way? What does it look like when God is the one ordering things in the universe? And sometimes Jesus will call out those parables and say, here's what the kingdom of heaven looks like, or here's what it looks like where God reigns. And then he'll tell a story that sort of often overturns people's expectations about how things are supposed to be. Sometimes Jesus will just flat out say things that sound like they take your worldview and flip it on its head, or flip things right side up again. Sometimes Jesus will say, like we're going to hear this coming Sunday, the last will be first and the first will be last, taking things in the usual order and expectation we bring and flipping them on their head. Sometimes his storytelling is a little more below the radar, a little more subversive. So he tells a story, for example, where there's a man who owns a vineyard and goes out to hire people to work in his vineyard, harvesting grapes, plucking grapes, and he hires people at the beginning of the day and just says to them, I'll give you, the way Jesus describes it is a denarius. That's a coin that would be like the standard minimum wage for the day. Basically enough for you to pay for the cost of living for you and your family tomorrow. And remember, people in this world and doing this kind of work are paid one day at a time and only hired one day at a time. So if you don't work today, you don't eat tomorrow. If you didn't work yesterday, you don't get to eat today. You're in a hand-to-mouth subsistence kind of lifestyle. So this landowner goes out and hires people to work in his vineyard, paying them what's a decent, regular, sort of standard wage. And later in the morning, he goes out into the marketplace and finds more people just standing around doing nothing. Now it's 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning, and he says to them, I'll tell you, you go work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right, whatever is just. And they go out and they work, and throughout the day he keeps hiring more people who will eventually have worked less and less and less, because that's how the workday goes, right? So this guy has hired people at noon and early in the afternoon, and finally hires people just 1 hour until quitting time, and at the end of the day tells his steward, go ahead and pay the people who I've hired, starting with the ones who've only worked 1 hour, who only were hired last, and then working your way up to the first. And the ones who only worked 1 hour a day, the one who got hired last in the day, they still get paid the full same wage, the full denarius that the people who got hired for the full day worked. And when the people who worked the whole day come, they also only get a denarius. They only get the same usual daily wage. And of course they are furious that you've made us equal to them. We worked a lot harder than them. We've earned more than them. And the landowner in the story, Jesus says to the ones who were hired at the beginning of the day, the ones who worked all day long, he says, I haven't cheated you, I paid you exactly what we agreed. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I'm generous? See, here's the hitch. For the people who had worked all day long, they see their wages as a reward for their toil. That basically the economy is you work harder, you get more stuff. And the goal is to amass more and more stuff. The landowner in the story doesn't see things that way. He understands that if you don't work today, you don't eat tomorrow, and your family doesn't eat tomorrow. And if you were living in an economy where you can only feed your kids if you got paid today, and if you get paid only a fraction of a day's salary, your kids only get to eat a fraction of their usual food. Your family goes hungry. What? Because nobody else would hire you. It's not your fault. It's that somebody didn't hire you that day. So this landowner says, I'm more committed that everybody gets to eat than in treating wages like a reward. You worked more, you get more money. But instead, I want to make sure everybody gets to eat. I want to make sure everybody gets to feed their kids. The landowner, in other words, sees his whole community like a big household, where the goal is everybody should be able to get to eat. And it's not about who gets the biggest pile of money, or who can judge I'm better than you because I've got a bigger pile of money. Which brings me back to the ketchup bottle. The end of Jesus' story, Jesus says, this is how God's reign, this is how God's kingdom works. In fact, in God's reign, in God's ordering of things, many who are first are last, and the last are first. It takes everything we were used to and turns it upside down, because in the reign of God, God is more interested in giving freely to everybody who's hungry, rather than us trying to rack up points to compare who's better than whom, who's done more than whom, who's earned more than whom. That's always going to sound upside down to a world that is bent on earning and judging and comparing. I'm slightly better than you because I've got a slightly bigger pile of stuff than you. I worked harder, therefore I should get more prizes. And here we are, we followers of Jesus, who dare to say God's economy doesn't work that way. God's ordering of the world doesn't work that way. It sounds totally upside down, as upside down as saying I was used to a ketchup bottle that worked like this, but it surely flows more freely when you turn it this way and you store it and you build it this way. God's reign is built this way. God's reign is built like a modern ketchup bottle that is designed for sharing all around, not for hoarding and storing in the back of your refrigerator where nobody ever uses it and you have to try and use a knife to get it out. God's more interested that everybody gets to eat. God's more interested in freely distributing and sharing good things so that everybody gets what they need. And we as the community of Jesus, especially we Lutheran Christians, who make an awful big deal about being put in right relationship with God as a gift of grace. In other words, by not what we've earned, not what we've racked up, but as a free gift. We are called to be this different kind of community that says to the wider world, here's what it looks like to live in God's order of things. It's no longer about how do I hoard for myself a slightly bigger pile than you have so I can make myself feel like I'm better than you, but how do I make sure everybody who comes to the table gets fed? And so when we gather on Sunday mornings and we come to the table, that's exactly how it works. We don't distribute, oh, you get more of the body of Christ, you get more of the bread because I can tell you worked harder today, or you look very pious, so you get to have more. No, everybody gets to eat. Everybody gets what they need. In the way God orders things, everybody gets to eat. And God is more concerned that people are able to feed their families than in rewarding people with slightly more wages, slightly more points, slightly more glory, whatever you want to imagine. God's more interested that everybody gets to eat. That's what the reign of God looks like. The next time you get out the ketchup bottle from your fridge, think about how we are living our lives. Whether I'm building my life around how do I hoard and store and keep for myself so I can look down on everybody else around me, or whether I'll order my life all the way down to how I share my ketchup. Am I willing to order my life so that everybody around me can have what they need? In other words, could my life be a reflection of God's reign, of God's way of ruling the universe, where everybody gets to eat? That's the conversation we're taking a look at this coming Sunday. See you then.